And up next here, we got the co-main event of the evening, and it's another bantamweight fight, and it's going to be between Douglas Silva de Andrade and Miles Johns. And you look at Douglas Silva de Andrade, he's a long-time underrated fighter. He's been able to stick around in the UFC for years. I mean, he was signed to the UFC in 2014. When he was signed, he was 22-0, and over 10 years later, he's still in the biggest promotion in the world. And he's been up and down in the UFC, but really his losses, when you look at it, have only been to really elite guys like Said Nurmagomedov, Laron Murphy, Peter Yan, Rob Font. He has wins over Cody Gibson, Cheeto Vera, Henan Barral, Sergey Morzov, Cody Stamen. So he definitely has put in work, and he's currently won 3 of his last 4 fights. He's coming off the win over Stamen, but he hasn't fought since May of last year. And at 38 years old, plus the long layoff, I'm not sure if it was an injury or what, but it's just not a good sign for me. But he has gotten a pretty long camp in to prepare for this fight, so he should be ready to go. And style-wise, Andrade, he's a knockout artist. He hasn't gotten a ton of knockouts in the UFC, but his objective coming into every fight is to knock his opponent's head off. And he likes to stay at kicking range, which can be a positive and a negative. It's good because he can limit his offense, he can rest and then explode, and he closes the gap quickly, he hits hard, so fighters usually settle into a slower pace against him. But he mainly throws one-shot attacks. He's either throwing a big looping right hand, the right hook, or the left hook to the head or the body. He'll throw some spinning back fist, and he has some kicks that he will also throw out there, but isn't that high volume. When he lands, it's usually heavy, though, and against fighters who stay long and kick while being evasive, he could struggle. And he also struggles against pressure fighters that can get on the inside and force him to work at a higher pace than he wants to. But he has an iron chin. He's only been finished with strikes 1 time, and that was a corner stoppage. So technically, he has never been actually TKO'd or knocked out via strikes. It was a corner stoppage. But after not being knocked down in his first 30 fights and 9 UFC fights, he's been dropped in 2 of his last 3 fights. So he's been able to win both those fights, but it kind of shows his age and his durability maybe going a little bit. But Andrade isn't an offensive wrestler, really. He's gotten some takedowns in a couple fights, but it isn't a big part of his game. But he has footwork, he has strength, and it makes him difficult to take down. He has heavy hips, fast reactions, and if you take him down, he's hard to hold down. He hasn't had a fight yet in his UFC career where he just got held down for the majority of the fight, and he's done well versus most of the wrestlers that he's fought. Cardio for him isn't terrible, but he does slow down, and now with his age, it could be getting worse. He did get really tired in the 3rd round versus Cody Stamen, and it led to him almost getting finished and blowing the fight. And in a fight with someone like Miles Johns, though, who isn't a cardio machine either, I think it's going to be a slower paced fight. But his opponent, Miles Johns, he's a maligned fighter by many, but if you look at his record, he's had a strong start to his UFC career. He's came to the UFC with the LFA belt. He was undefeated, and a couple losses kind of ruined his stock, but he's 6-2 in 8 fights in the UFC. He's won 3 in a row, and this fight's going to be the one that can kind of get him over the hump if he can get the victory. Miles Johns, he's a power puncher. He has solid wrestling, good footwork. He also likes to hang back and try to lure fighters in so he can pull them into his power. Power jab, his left hook, his right overhand. He throws hard low kicks, and he keeps a good high guard, so he's difficult to hit when he's fresh. He, I think, is going to have to deal with Andrade potentially trying to go to the body here, and he needs to be able to counter that with uppercuts or something that he's going to be bringing to this fight. But he needs to be able to counter that some way. But neither fighter here in this matchup likes to go first much, so I could see it being kind of a low-volume, boring fight, but I think Miles Johns is going to have the power edge. And Miles can wrestle, but his wrestling hasn't been that effective in the UFC, and he's kind of went to a more striking, heavy style where he only uses his wrestling when he really needs to or to kind of try to steal a round or something like that. But I see this being more of a stand-up fight. And as far as his gas tank, I think his cardio has always been an aspect of his game that's been questioned. But I think he's gotten better at maintaining his gas tank. And I think he's going to have the better cardio of the 2 guys in this fight. And Douglas Silva de Andrade is a beast. He's still an amazing fighter for his age. But I think Miles Johns is going to get the win here. I think he hits harder. I think de Andrade, his durability with him being dropped a couple times recently could be waning. And Miles Jones just should be a bit sharper, in my opinion, with his hands. As long as he doesn't let De Andrade get off to the body or just clip him, I think he should win. And I think he's going to win via decision. He has a chance to get the knockout, become the first guy to get a clean knockout on De Andrade. He's 8 years younger. He's been more active. He's won 2 fights since the last time De Andrade has competed, coming off a strong performance. And I just think he's this better guy at this point in time. So give me Miles Jones to win this one via decision.